Welcome back, everyone, to the Real Talk Podcast, episode 16. And on today's podcast, we are going to be doing our usual box office breakdown, but the primary focus of our show is going to be ranking our top 10 movies of the year. That's right, this is our end of the year special. We might get into some actors and actresses that we like this year in movies, favorite performances maybe, favorite scenes, all depends on what we can get through in our top 10 movies. But without further ado, joining me on today's podcast is Mike Gillis. Mike, what is going on?
What's up, guys? Can't believe it's already the end of the year.
Yeah, I know.
It's
went by
cool.
quick.
Like, even though we started this podcast a little late in the year, but like
yeah,
16,
September was it?
Strong.
Early.
Yeah, September.
Yeah, late September, early October.
Some great movies this year. So it's always a good year for movies, though.
And
it's especially a good year this year.
The good thing about our end of the year top 10 is just because we started the podcast in the fall doesn't mean we didn't see movies before the fall. We have movies that we haven't touched on this podcast yet that we can give a quick little blurb about when we give our top 10s of the year. So without further ado, we are going to start off with our weekend box office report per usual. We're just going to go through the top 5, but for this week for news, we're not really going to have any news. We're just going to focus on our top 10. And news was kind of slow anyways, as it usually is towards the end of the year. Not until we get Oscar nominations and stuff like that will news start to pick up again. All right, so
just waiting for the Oscar noms, really. I'm pretty excited, hoping James Franco gets that nomination.
Yeah, me too. Mike's obviously referring to Disaster Artist, which he got to see, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping I will get the chance as well. And he was a big fan of it, so it looks like he'll be willing to see it twice. And yeah, as for Oscar nominations, we'll probably do a special, just going through the main Oscar noms when that time comes around.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I don't know, when are they supposed to come out?
It's usually early January because Oscars aren't until February.
Yeah.
But yeah, fingers crossed for Logan getting a Best Picture nomination, personally from me. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go through our top 5 from the box office this past weekend. Coming in at number 1, without any surprise really, is Star Wars The Last Jedi, making $99 million, dropping 55% from opening weekend. Coming in at number 2 is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, making $55.4 million its opening weekend. Number 3 is Pitch Perfect 3, making $26.4 million its opening weekend. Coming in at number 4, The Greatest Showman, making $14.4 million its opening weekend. And rounding out the top 5 is Ferdinand, making $10.1 million, dropping 24.5%. I believe it's in its second weekend now. That's the top 5.
It came out during Star Wars.
Yeah, so that's the top 5. Just looking at the top 5, actually we have a good amount to talk about because we have 3 movies with their opening weekends in the top 5. Mike, just looking at our top 5, what stands out?
No surprise that Star Wars is number 1 still. I mean, that's going to be number 1 for probably 2 more weeks at least. We did think about like how maybe Jumanji will uptake Star Wars. That didn't look like they did that. Jumanji stayed strong with number 2 though, which we haven't seen Jumanji yet. I kind of want to see it.
I've heard it's like it's low key a coming of age movie is what I've been hearing.
I mean, I guess the kids, like, it's about those kids that
get
sucked into the video game.
It's one of those movies where it seems like it's disguised as a blockbuster because they keep saying about the performances are really good, and I'm like, you don't really expect much in a movie like that in terms of like performances.
Rock and Jack Black.
Yeah, and not saying they're bad actors, it's just saying that like what they're given, you don't think they can really do much with it.
Yeah.
So
Jack Black did like dramatic stuff in King Kong and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Looking at the top 5, Pitch Perfect 3 making a solid $26.4 million. Just looking at its budget of $45 million, it's already made it back worldwide. The Greatest Showman kind of breaks my heart because I really want to see this movie and I'm going to see it at some point, but it's only made half of its production budget worldwide and it opened to a mediocre $14.4 million. Not the type of business they were looking for, obviously, in their opening weekends. I've heard mixed reviews though, because I've heard people say they were disappointed, but one of my favorite reviewers out there, Andrew Guy, said that it was very heartwarming, and he mentioned just feeling like a kid again and feeling like optimistic. And so I don't know. I feel like it might have rubbed people the wrong way just because with a musical like that, they might be looking for some sort of Oscar material considering how successful La La Land was at the Oscars last year.
It doesn't look like that's going to get nominated for Oscars, though.
Yeah, unfortunately. Just looking at the top 5 again, I made a prediction last week that Star Wars The Last Jedi would make under $100 million its opening weekend. Its second weekend, my apologies. And, well, it made 99, so in a way I was right. But, I mean, at the time I checked the box office, it was only tracking for around 70 million. So the drop was pretty big. Obviously, they got some numbers wrong. That might have just been Sunday estimates, like a mix-up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Last Jedi continues to dominate the box office, and its worldwide total right now, oh my god, it's at $953 million in just around 2 weeks at the box office.
It's made its money back.
It has made its money back in full, and yeah, it's going to dominate. I don't expect it to leave the number 1 spot until the end of January, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think there's a movie that will take its place until maybe not even until Black Panther in mid-February.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy though. Like January is never a good year for month for movies. Like what comes out in January?
Yeah, it's kind of where.
Well, did Split come out in January?
It did, but that was M. Night Shyamalan before he kind of got his reputation back. So they were hesitant where they were going to release his movie.
Yeah.
All right, so
I heard he actually finished writing the sequel recently.
Yeah, well, they've already started filming.
Oh, they have?
Yeah, with there's been set pictures of what's his name, Samuel L. Jackson as Mr. Glass on set.
Nice.
So yeah, that will be something to look forward to. I believe it comes out in 2018. I could be wrong. Either 2018 or early 2019. We'll have to look forward to that. Anyways, any final thoughts on the top 5 for the box office?
No, not really. It's kind of boring. I don't know.
Yeah.
Same old.
Just for a final thought for me, I would say interesting to see Downsizing not making the top 5 just because,
bad marketing.
Yeah, bad marketing. It looked decent. Matt Damon in the starring role, obviously. Coco, first week out of the top 5, I believe. In its run. Let me just double check that. Yeah, Coco was number 3 last week. And so, yeah, I mean, this top 5 looks to be...
How long has Coco been out?
Coco's been out for a solid 2 months, I think. I think it opened sometime in November. But yeah, this top 5 doesn't look like it's going to change for the time being. Jumanji's probably going to hold number 2 for a little bit because it's got the star power, it's got the kid factor. Pitch Perfect 3, that'll probably stay there. Greatest Showman hopefully stays in the top 5, but to be honest, I could see it falling off in 2 or 3 weeks. All right, without further ado, we are going to get into our top 10 movies of the year. We don't have one list, we have our own separate because obviously not only did we like different movies, we also saw different movies. There are movies on my list that maybe Mike hasn't seen. There are movies on Mike's list that maybe I have not seen. Just because, we're human, we don't get around to every movie, but, our different tastes bring us to different flicks. We are going to do this in this way. We're going to go 10 through 6, 10 through 6, 5 to 2, 5 to 2, and then we'll both give our number 1 at the very end. So, do you want me to start with my 10 through 6, and then I'll go to you?
Yeah, you can start.
Sure, okay. So, I'll do my 10 through 6, I'll just read them off. And I'll give a little blurb in between each one. All right, so starting out my top 10, coming in at number 10 is Baby Driver. Baby Driver, I was really impressed by. I didn't love it as much as some people, obviously, because it's at the bottom of my top 10, but it's called a top 10 for a reason. It's still one of my favorite of the year. Edgar Wright, I think, is at his best here. I believe it's his best movie he's ever directed. Maybe Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I don't know.
You're not going to talk about Shaun of the Dead or Top Fuzz?
Those are good, but Baby Driver...
I guess his prettiest movie.
Yeah, and most mass appealing movie. Because, just everyone always talks about it, but the sound editing in this movie, the incorporation of the soundtrack to just perfect beats with like a barrage of guns would be basically like a drum roll or whatever. Yeah, just the way this movie was presented was really neat. There were parts where I was kind of iffy on, to be honest, just because I know a lot of people love the romance. I thought at points it kind of dragged, in my personal opinion. But other than that, just the characters in this movie, performances. Obviously, Jamie Foxx I thought was amazing as essentially the main antagonist. John Hamm was fantastic. Even John Bernthal for the little bit he was in at the beginning.
Yeah.
And even though his name kind of has controversy, Kevin Spacey, I do believe, gave a good performance in this movie. All right, number 9 for me is Dunkirk. Dunkirk, I did not think lived up to the reviews that it was given, but it wasn't a movie where I was expecting it to be. Obviously, I had expectations considering Christopher Nolan at the director's chair, but at the same time, I wasn't going into it with a huge amount of anticipation. I thought the lack of characters hurt the movie, but like I said, it's in my top 10 for a reason. The visuals in this movie are absolutely stunning. It's one of the best.
The sounds, too.
Sounds, for sure. It's one of the best World War II movies ever put on screen, in my opinion, in terms of visuals. I thought the aerial stuff was amazing. When they were in the boat and they were trying to cover up the holes and then, constant threats of torpedoes, felt very claustrophobic at times because, they're kind of trapped on this one bay, and Dunkirk really blew me away with its visuals. Like I said, performances were kind of limited. I thought Harry Styles was really good in this movie for what he was given.
I didn't even know it was Harry Styles.
Yeah. Tom Hardy was pretty good, but, he didn't have a whole ton to do. Who else was, what's his name? He won an Oscar last year, Best Supporting Actor, for Bridge of Spies. He was in it. I'm forgetting his name, but he was good. He was on the rescue boat that helped some. He was like older guy. Mark Rylance?
Maybe.
Is that him?
The French guy?
I need to Google it real quick because it's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Dunkirk. Let's see. I feel like it was Mark Rylance. I'm kind of losing my mind. Kenneth Branagh was great in it as well. As was he the main captain essentially?
Not really many. Oh, excuse me. Not many main characters.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Mark Rylance. Okay, I wasn't losing my mind. All right. But yeah, like I said, Dunkirk, visually stunning, story, amazing, right out of a textbook, and just one little part of history done so masterfully by the visionary Christopher Nolan. Coming in at number 8 is The Last Jedi. I've talked about this movie a whole bunch. Some may be surprised to have it. Oh, wait. No. All right. I made some changes to my list. Last Jedi is not number 8. So before, I don't want to rank this movie above it because I don't want people coming at me. But coming in at number 8 is It, not The Last Jedi. I'll get to The Last Jedi in just a bit. But I really enjoyed it. Probably my favorite horror movie I've ever seen, to be honest, because despite the bad rap horror movies get, it still, I thought, did a great job with characters as well as the story. And Pennywise, I think, will go down as a bit of a pop culture icon, as he's already in every single meme.
Do you think Bill Skarsgård should get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor?
I think he deserves it. He deserves it, but he's not going to get it because it's just the type of movie that you don't get nominations from. All right.
You also say that with The Dark Knight, though.
I mean, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but at the same time, I feel a lot of Heath Ledger's nomination played in with his death. And don't get me wrong, I believe he not only deserved the nomination, but deserved the win. But at the same time,
I think that
circumstances dictate, but that's just how the